too bad. Like, honestly, some of these motherfuckers are hysterical, dog. You're right. Maybe they did need lobotomies. Like, it can't be just like a fucking like, I know that most of the targets of lobotomies were just like women, but you know, men can catch these lobotomizing hands too. Honestly, just like one quick ice pick, dude, through the nose, you know, up the nose hole, boom, problem solved.
Time for some.
Ben Shapiro, yes, you should have kids. Voluntary childlessness is bad. 63K views, dude. This man has fallen off, okay? You want to know why? Because, like, ultimately he's on YouTube. Motherfuckers on YouTube are not fucking, okay? If you're spending time watching Ben Shapiro videos on YouTube, you literally will never have, you will never have consensual sex, okay? No wonder only 63,000 people watch this because they're like, bro, why? This video does not appeal to me, sir. Like, I'm not fucking, okay? I like that he also said voluntary childlessness is bad. Another incredible admission. He knows half of his audience is involuntarily childless. Do you consider yourself a member of the dirtbag left? Was reading about Chapo, and it sounded a lot like what you do. I do not like any I don't like any like weird markers like that. I don't give a fuck. I'm just doing me. Okay? The dirtbag left. Yeah, silly labels. Sam and Emma on Majority Report said that they want to come on Leftovers. That'd be great. Okay, god damn. There's a lot of Ben Shapiro to go through. Here, let's look at this Onion article about is journalism's sacred duty to endanger the lives of as many trans people as possible. The task of reporting is not a simple one. Each and every day, reporters and editors of publications like The Onion make difficult decisions about which issues should receive attention, knowing that our coverage will influence not only how people think, but also how they act. This responsibility is at the core of an ongoing debate over whether news coverage of transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people is unduly biased. As the world's leading news publication with a daily readership of 4.3 trillion, The Onion is compelled to weigh in. We firmly believe that it's journalism's sacred duty to endanger the lives of as many trans people as possible. Quentin is a 14-year-old assigned female at birth who now identifies as male against the wishes of his parents. His transition was supported by one of his unmarried teachers who is not a virgin. He stole his parents' car and drove to the hospital where a doctor immediately began performing top surgery on him. Afterwards, driving home drunk from the hospital, Quentin became suicidally depressed. He wonders now, homeless and ridden with gonorrhea, if transitioning was a mistake. We just made Quentin up, and that's okay. By the way, this literally reads like any article that you would see that's anti-trans, so much so that while this is a joke, because it's on The Onion, when you're reading it, you're like, okay, this is kind of fucked up that they're even writing this. Because, like, that's literally what these fucking articles are always about. They'll be like, out of the thousands of trans people that have successfully transitioned and are very happy, we went and found a detransitioner who, like, you know, had a bad time. So we're just going to only talk about that person as though it is reflexive, as though it's, you know, the entirety of the population. We just made Quentin up, and that's okay. It doesn't mean stories like his aren't potentially happening everywhere constantly. Good journalism is about finding these stories, even when they don't exist. It's about asking the tough questions and ignoring the answers you don't like, then offering misleading evidence in service of preordained editorial conclusions. In our case, endangering trans people is the lodestar that shapes our coverage. Frankly, if our work isn't putting trans people further at risk of trauma and violence, we consider it a failure. We stand behind our recent obsessed seeming torrent of articles and essays on trans people, which we believe faithfully depict their lived experiences as weird and gross. We remain dedicated to finding the angles that best frame the basic rights of gender nonconforming as up for debate, and we will use these same angles over and over again in hopes that this repetition makes them suffer. As journalists, it is our obligation to entertain any and all pseudoscience that gives bigotry an intellectual veneer. We must be diligent in laundering our vitriol through the posture of journalistic inquiry, and we must be allowed to fixate on the genitals. This is satire. Yes, this is the Onion making fun of the New York Times and like what the New York Times' approach has been to like covering trans issues. The best part about this is like New York Times does this and then they'll be like, what do you mean? We're just being objective. If anything, we're too pro-trans. It's against free speech to stop us from fixating on the genitals. This can also, of course, this line right here, New York Times talking about trans people, teenagers specifically, or conservatives talking about Hunter Biden. It's like at the heart of every reactionary movement is the penis and the vagina, okay? What you need to understand is like conservatives have made it their goal to know what is going on in everyone's pants, okay? They just have to know. They're like, literally, they're like penis inspection day. Let's make that a reality. Think I'm joking? They tried to push that in Ohio. Remember, penis inspection day is a very real thing that the Ohio state legislature tried to push, okay? Like the Republicans in Ohio, unironically were like, if you suspect a teenage girl is actually a trans teenage girl, then you are entitled to check their pants, check their underpants. This was a very real Ohio piece of legislation because these people are fucking psychotic. I'm not even kidding. This is a real thing. Not even slightly pedophilic law? Yeah, just completely pedophilic. Exactly. Not even slightly. Anyway, much of the recent debate concerns medical procedures, particularly in children, and whether things like hormone replacement therapy or gender-affirming surgeries are safe and appropriate. Indeed, there are critical questions to be asked about the social complexities of gender, as well as medical ethics in a profit-driven healthcare system. We are simply not interested in any of that. Instead, we will use flawed data and spurious logic to repeatedly write the same hand-wringing arguments asking whether there are suddenly too many trans people around. Journalistic integrity demands nothing less. That's my favorite that's my favorite intellectual curiosity argument is always like, so what's up? Are there like too many trans people now? What's going on with that? It's like, dude, you're not writing like an intelligent you're not writing an article that is like intellectually curious. You're just basically trying to, intellectualize your bigotry. What's up? What's the deal? What's going on? What do you mean too many? What the fuck does that mean? What's it to you, you fucking idiot? Mind your own goddamn business. Naturally, courageous reporting like ours has its detractors. Our critics accuse us of transphobia and are trying to murder us online with their online mobs. They want to destroy our right to free speech and have us arrested by all the police. What gives? Why would you want to arrest us when it's those deviant trans people you ought to be arresting instead? Do you know what the science says about trans people getting arrested, huh? What if we could find data saying trans people should be more likely to get arrested? What will our detractors say then? They'll be silent. As well, they should be, and free speech will survive one more day. For more evidence of our time-honored journalistic commitment to endangering lives, please see our previous coverage of gay people, immigrants, black people, and women. Institutions with massive platforms like ours must be open to different ways of endangering the trans community. That might mean using the framework of medical care as a boogeyman to imply that trans people are engaged in something sinister. That might mean turning isolated instances of detransitioning into sweeping generalizations about children being groomed. That might mean identifying the worst prejudices that transgender people face and encouraging our readers to adopt them. Did you did you forget yet about how we wrote that there might be data showing that trans people should be more likely to get arrested? What if that were true? Or what if non-binary people are 10 times more likely to traffic infants? What if puberty blockers are a kind of sex crime? What if doctors are climbing through the windows to suture penises to sleeping cheerleaders? The next time you see a trans person, you ought to ask yourself these questions. Again, this is satire, but it is so fucking close to reality. Like, the way that they fucking cover trans issues literally is like obsessive and from a position of like either sheer disgust or the most positive coverage still is usually like, well, they're doing something weird over there and I don't really understand it and therefore it should be illegal. You know what I mean? What's going on? All great journalists, and even those lesser journalists who don't work for The Onion, eventually ponder why we do what we do. Is the point of reporting to illuminate the world around us so that we may make meaning of it? Or is it to cause people in minority groups to question their humanity and persuade others to demonize them? We know where we stand, proudly dreaming of genitals, and you will never stop me from thinking about genitals. It is illegal for you to stop me from reading, writing, and thinking about genitals all the time. What's going on? There was a proud moment in this country where we could write and talk about genitals all the time. Nowadays, liberals want to take that away from you. Ted Kaczynski. Research shows that trans people are over 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be a victim of a violent crime. We salute our colleagues across the media who are working tirelessly to make that number even higher. That's right. Won't anybody think, when students change gender identity and parents don't know, won't anybody think of the transphobic parents? Is a really funny argument to make, is a really funny way to write this article, because like, you know, the victims in that situation are the thousands of queer kids that are, you know, homeless, right? Like pushed away from their families at the verge of suicide. Like, but the New York Times is like, but what about the parents who pushed them out? Why is nobody talking about the parents? Dating another race and parents don't know type beat? Exactly. I know, wait, this was published yesterday? Yeah, I know. That's why we're you know, doing this. That's why we're making fun of the New York Times. I covered this extensively yesterday. You know, this article is gross. Trans people need and deserve protection. I believe the majority of trans identified people not only pose zero threat to others, but are vulnerable. I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I feel nothing but empathy and solidarity with trans women who've been abused by men. These statements were written by J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Yeah. Oh, dude, if she said that, then my bad. I fucking had no idea. Like the time that she wrote an entire work of fiction about like a Buffalo Bill style like person doing murders, or all the other stuff that she's written about how, you know, trans women need to stay away from you know, female bathrooms because they're all rapists, things like that. All of those other transphobic things that she has said, all of the other transphobic people that have been fired that she has defended, all the times that she's hung out with like hate groups like the LGB coalition, the most bricked up group of ladies you've ever seen, by the way, which is something that I always personally love, which is that like the people that are trying to uphold a rigid gender binary do not fit in the gender binary. Like they will get clocked by normies on a regular basis in a future that they, you know, wish to live in. So that's already weird. You know what I mean? It's like, why are you making it harder for yourself, dumbass? Like, you're literally like, no, women should look like women. And it's like, but you don't look like the thing that you're trying to advocate for, which would in a normal world, if you had like a normal brain, you would look to that and go, oh, you know what? Maybe gender isn't this rigid binary. Maybe it's just a way that we express ourselves. But no, no, nope. It's like, it's always the most, it is always the fucking, you know, the broadest shouldered women I've ever seen being like, no, 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 if you have broad shoulders, you're not a woman. I'm like, have you seen the mirror? What are you saying right now? What do you mean? What do you mean? Of course you're a woman. This is what is very weird to me about TERFs. Very, very, very strange to me about TERFs is that, like, they want to uphold these rules of passing, but they don't pass. Okay? Like, I don't get it. Hasan is transphobic. Yes, I am TERF phobic. Like, why would you try to, like, uphold a insane fucking rigid gender binary when you yourself don't fit it? Yeah, remember, this is a legendary you know, ridiculous ratio I gave to Ben Shabibo back in 2020 when I said, Ben, you're 5'3", can't grow facial hair and weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. If we can both be considered men, you should probably be a bit more open-minded about gender expressions. It's clearly not as rigid a binary as you try to imply it is. This tweet is why he has a beard now? Barely. Anyway. Important context about this pro-trans quotes from J.K. Rowling. Lamau, Pamela Paul starts her column with a bunch of pro-trans statements by J.K. Rowling. Turns out 3 of them are from a single paragraph, which she immediately nullifies by saying, trans people pose a danger to women. So I want trans women to be safe. At the same time, I do not want to make natal girls and women less safe. When you throw open the doors of bathrooms, exactly, this is what I mean. This is what I'm saying. Like, dude, the moment that you think, like, trans women are just fucking doing rapes in bathrooms is the moment you've gone. Like, you're delusional. You're insane. I don't know how to describe this to you. You're out of your fucking mind. You know who does rapes in bathrooms? Rapists, okay? Like, that's, I don't know how else to describe it. Like, a rapist doesn't go, oh man, like, I should take HRT so I can more easily get into women's restrooms so I can do the rapes there. That's like an insane amount of fucking, like, work that you need to put in just to do the rapes. Why the fuck would anybody do that? Which is precisely the reason why there is no fucking, like, there's no evidence that this is a real thing. It's just a made up, complete fabrication. But when you make something up about an otherwise hyper marginalized group of people, and they're a very tiny fraction of the society, then people kind of believe it. Yeah. I'm imagining a rapist who's like, they want to do rape, but they also at the same time are like really into following the rules of not going into the women's restroom. Well, once they got their mind on doing a rape, I think, they don't really give a shit whether it's the women's room or the men's room. You know what I mean? Like, very odd take. But it's also like, it's also insane because, like, people still believe it though. Like, they think this is a real take. Anyway. When you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, and by the way, which is, again, transphobic. Yeah, I did see the gym attempted rape. I did. And as I've said, gender confirmation certificates may now be granted without any need for surgery or hormones. Then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth. The fourth is also a perfunctory statement of solidarity within an explicitly anti-trans rant. Paul is just quoting all the time. She said, I've got nothing against trans people, but I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them. I'd march with you if you were discriminated against on the basis of being trans. By the way, this was a lie because she's never fucking marched with trans people. I remember this. I remember when she said this. And like, that was a lie. Bro, this fucking psycho doesn't even march with cis women. You know what I mean? She doesn't give a shit about anything. She just hates trans people. This is why it's like kind of funny. She's like, oh, I'm this big like feminist. That's why I hate trans people. It's like, no, you're just saying that you're a feminist because you think that that's a more, that's a more viable vehicle for you to deliver transphobic shit. Okay? Like when I deliver the top of the hour ad break, like the best way to do it is sometimes 17 minutes into the top of the hour because I, thought I could catch you off guard. Not because I forgot. Don't say that I forgot. I did not forget. I'm running it now. Now, of course, the best vehicle for you to avoid the top of the hour ad break is by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime or by getting gifted a sub. Gage Against the Machine, thank you for the 5 Tier 1 gifted subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. Yeah, she's a feminist in the same way Elon Musk is a free speech absolutist, a billionaire currying political favor. Exactly. Elon Musk thinks free speech is when everyone adores him and only that kind of speech is allowed and everyone has to see and forcibly like his tweets. He doesn't give a shit about like actual free speech. Evil Oz, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Sundry Disposition, thank you for the 5 gifted subs as well. At the same time, my life has been shaped by being female. I do not believe it is hateful to say so. That's what she says. The funny thing is, these people always, and I mean always, give the game away. Jordan Peterson used to do this as well. He was like, I'm not transphobic. I'll call you by your gender neutral pronouns if you want. And I used to say, this motherfucker's a transphobe. And everyone would get super mad at me. They'd be like, Jordan Peterson's not a transphobe, dude. You're a fucking idiot. And now he's literally like talking about how double mastectomies should be illegal. You know what I mean? For consenting adults. So they always inevitably fucking tell you the truth. It starts off with like little pieces, little evidence, bits and pieces. That's also part of the reason why a lot of trans people, especially hyper online trans people, are very, very they're very sensitive to anything that like deviates from what the other hyper online trans people are saying online and immediately think someone is transphobic, including people like myself. You know what I mean? Because like, yeah, usually transphobia comes in like little bits and pieces until you finally are courageous enough to just reveal how insanely fucking transphobic you actually are. You know? The problem will also be fits all public bathrooms are unisex. What? But that's not the case. And no one is saying that that should be the case. People have been advocating for like gender neutral bathrooms, which is fine. More privacy too in that situation, and that's great. But no, that's not what's going on here. It's not like abolishing men's restrooms and women's restrooms. It's just saying trans women should be able to go to the women's restroom and be able to take a shit in peace without some fucking psychotic Karen going crazy. I was yelling at you from chat about Harry Potter and I called you a piece of shit. You're not a piece of shit. You're a great ally. I was just upset. Yeah, I know. I know. I don't care. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You write one trans murder fantasy novel and imply they should be genocided, and suddenly you're a transphobe these days. I know. while simultaneously funding anti-trans groups too. It's like, come on, what can't we say? It is really fucked up, dude. The notion of collective gendered restrooms is kind of gross if you think about it anyway. Why not just have a bunch of individual lockable stalls and communal sink space outside? I went to a bar last week and it was completely common sense. I don't care. I don't care about any of this shit. I think the bathroom stuff is just like really silly culture war nonsense. All conversations that revolve around like trans people existing in society are oftentimes created by people who don't want them to exist in society, but try to find like a more acceptable avenue that shelters their overarching bigotries. So they won't say like, I just don't think trans people should exist. They'll say, trans women should be banned from sports. It's about ethics in women's sports, a thing I care about 100%. Definitely care about it. I'm the foremost, most knowledgeable person about swim meets happening at 14-year-old at high schools. I go to all of them. It's just, and then they run the fucking gamut all the way and write legislation. They get to write legislation about this shit. And all you're doing is like dunking on one 14-year-old trans girl. And it's never about that. It's never about like where, it's never about like a trans teenager being able to participate at the swim meet. It's always about just trans people being pushed away from yet another area of existence and yet another avenue of existence with the purposeful goal of just ultimately eradicating trans people. Anyway. Rosalina's evil stepmother. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs. This is one of the funniest things from that New York Times article. There's obviously a lot of insane and terrible stuff in Pamela Paul's column today, but this part really made me laugh. This lady spent 12 weeks reporting a listicle for what site? What are you talking about? Take it from one of her former critics, E.J. Rosetta, a journalist who once denounced Rowling for her supposed transphobia, was commissioned last year to write an article called 20 Transphobic J.K. Rowling Quotes We're Done With. After 12 weeks of reporting and reading, Rosetta wrote, I've not found a single truly transphobic message. On Twitter, she declared, you're burning the wrong witch. Many words have trans in them, transport, translate, transcribe, etc. But cis, before recently, it was only used in one word before it was hailed as how to describe not trans people, a cistern. That thing in the toilet. They're comparing biological women to toilets. Lovely. Yo, this person, again, if you consider, look, you might be the type of dude who's like, I don't really understand trans people. I don't know what's going on. It's a little weird. It's a little strange for me, okay? I feel like, blue is for boys, pink is for women, I don't know what the fuck's happening. Okay, and a lot of people have this starting point. A lot of people are born into a world where that is the rigid binary. Obviously, these are outdated, antiquated, or sometimes relatively new in comparison to the grand scheme of things, but relatively outdated concepts. Right? This is just not how it works. And when you find out about this, you're like, oh, fuck, it just like weirds me out a little bit. But most people ultimately go, okay, whatever, let them live. I don't give a shit, okay? It's mostly apathy, okay? That is the normative position is apathy. I don't really give a shit. I don't really get it. Who cares? These people go from like, I don't really give a shit to like, no, I give a shit so much. They need to be eradicated. They need to be abolished. This is destroying the planet. Okay? And they care about trans people. Like I said, they care about trans people more than trans people. They care about what trans people are doing. They care about what trans people are not doing. and make new shit up when they're not doing anything. And they're constantly talking about trans people, non-fucking stop. It is a mental illness. Okay? It is completely insane. You have lost your fucking mind. If you tweeted this much about Marvel movies, people would be, and feel like that is the most important thing on the planet, people would look at you like you're a crazy person, even then. Okay? They're doing the men need to pay for the meal. That's why it's called the menu, but as an actual argument. Yeah. So I urge you, don't go down that fucking scary path. Before you know it, you're going to be looking and trying to find trans people in your immediate vicinity. You're going to start thinking that, like, cis people are trans. Also, you're going to, I mean, look, like I said, wait, hold on. As I like to always point to this, where's the fucking LGB meetup that J.K. Rowling went to? Yeah, there it is.